Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name remains Comfort Boladayo Adegbero, and today I'll be talking to you about how to write your Commonwealth Scholarship essays. So it's one thing to want to apply for the scholarship, but then it's another thing to know how to craft your essays in a way that will make you a suitable candidate for this scholarship. So if you are an old subscriber, thank you for coming back, and if you're a new subscriber, you are welcome to this channel. Do well to like, do well to subscribe, and share the content of this channel, to people that you believe it will be useful for. So if you are ready to learn how to write your Commonwealth Scholarship essays, do stay tuned. So I'll be talking to you about the Commonwealth Scholarship essay. So this is more like a guide, but then before we enter into the essay, you would definitely want to know about the application form itself. So I will just walk you through briefly on how to, apply right from the application form up until when you get to the essays and how to submit. So let's get right into it. So the first thing you want to do is to go to the Commonwealth website. So in this video, I will just be walking you through the Commonwealth Master Scholarship as a guide. So you want to go to the How to Apply section, then click on the online application system, and afterwards you start filling the form. So you have to choose your nationality or your residency first. In my case, I'll be acting like a Nigerian, so I scroll down to where Nigeria is, click on Nigeria, then click on the next. Then it asks you to either create an account as a new user or continue as a returning user. It's a very simple process to create an account as a new user. So if you're applying for the first time, you want to use this option, but now I've already created an account, so I just go ahead to submit. So I started the application already before, then so I'm just going to click on edit and still walk you through the process. So the first thing that it will ask you is you should enter the country of your citizenship. So in my case, it's Nigeria. You look for Nigeria, you click on next. Afterwards, you read through and you're asked if you meet the academic eligibility criteria. If yes, you click on next. Then here you see the various nominating agencies that are available for those who are Nigerian. So you could select the Federal Scholarship Board, which is the overarching nominating agency. Then you have other nominating agencies such as the Commonwealth Equality Network. You might want to check each of these websites to know if there are extra nominating requirements, and also Forum for African Women Educationalists. This is just for females. So if you're a male, you're not eligible for this particular scholarship. So in this case, I'm just choosing the Federal Scholarship Board and I click on next. So it asks if your email address is correct. If it's not, you click on no. If it's correct, you click on yes, then next. Then so here you'd have to write your title. In this case, Miss, your given name, Comfort Oladayo. And then you go over to select your citizenship and Nigeria. Then the date of birth, you just fill in something. Your gender is female, then click on next. Then now, are you currently registered or enrolled for university qualification? In my case, I would say no if I've graduated, but if you're currently a student, you might want to write yes. So I click on next. The name of my institution, if you've already, graduated from university, Landmark University, the country is Nigeria. Then you want to write when you started this particular program and when you were awarded when you've completed the program rather. So in my case, the subject is crop science. The qualification that was awarded was a B Agric. Then the class of award. So in this case, I'm going to choose 1 because I believe this is an equivalent of first class. This will be an equivalent of second class upper, second class lower, the third class, and the pass. So I choose 1, and the date I was awarded is this. Do you wish to have a second university qualification? If yes, if you've been enrolled in a master's, you might want to. If not, you click no. Then here also it's a good way to explain if you've had like education outside of your home country, and if you've had also reasons, if you've been awarded some scholarships you want to also include in this place. You also want to read this instruction. It says you should declare any previous academic scholarships that you have held and any university education you've carried out outside of your home country. If you have studied at any university outside of your home country, explain how this was funded and how the education you received differed from that in your home country. If you have completed a master's degree in the UK, please provide justification as why you wish to study for a second master's. So if that applies to you, you want to include it. Down, if you had some publications, you publish papers, you want to include all of them, and every award you've ever received, this is the space to also include them. You shouldn't, just sell yourself and don't be too, what is the word now? Just sell yourself. Yeah. So now employment, you have to include your current employment, and there would also be space to include every other employment you have, obtained. In my case, I'll just choose something relating to agriculture, and you want to write the employer's name and all of that, but it's not really compulsory to fill this in, but you should do that and also include your main responsibilities. Then you click on next. Here is where you have to put your referee details, and there are some instructions on what you need to know. You're expected to provide references from your current or most recent employer, your most recent academic study, and you're required to provide the details of someone to be a personal referee. The interviewer should know you in a personal rather than in a professional capacity and should not be related to you. So these are instructions I need to take note of. So you can just fill in details of whoever. Yeah, so you do that for all of the referees that you have here. So now you go to the next page, and here you have to, this is where you write the first part of the essay, which is a development impact essay. So you click on which CSE development team you're applying under. Now you should have checked the website. If you are worried about where the development teams are, just come to the Commonwealth website here where you have the About Us and you see the CSE development team. So that's where you can check for that. And then for my case, let's say I'm applying for the science and technology for development. My first sustainable goal I want to select is zero hunger, and the second I want to select is no poverty. You don't have to select 3, but if you think you have 3 you want to select, and that's fine to go ahead and do that. So now I'll be walking you through how to answer the essay. So the first section is development impact essays. You have 3 other sections which I'll be showing to you subsequently. So here I'll be talking to you about the development impact essay, the proposed study in the UK, the career plans, the personal statement, and the voluntary and leadership experience. So now for the first section, the development impact, you have 4 questions or 4 essay questions that you would be required to answer. But then how do you answer these questions? Let's get right into it. So the first question that you'll be asked is how your proposed study relates to development issues at a global, national, and local level, and how your proposed study also relates to development issues connected to your chosen CSE team and the wider sector. And you have to write this in 200 words. So now, the first thing is the introductory paragraph, I would say, and this more or less includes like your problem statements is what I would advise you to write here. So in this case, you want to first highlight a key global development issue that is related to your field. Say, for example, my proposed program of study is MSc Biotechnology in the University of Chester. So I also want to include that like in the beginning, so they need to know that I'm intending to study or pursue a master's in biotechnology. But then your introduction should, highlight a key global development issue. So in my case, it's food security as a result of climate change also influencing negatively. We have different problems of pest and disease specifically affecting agriculture. So in my case, I want to talk about biotechnology has a tool, but then I also have to highlight like the problem that is already on ground. So I would also need to emphasize how this issue affects the national and local levels using relevant statistics. For example, you might want to say, okay, there are 14 million undernourished people in Nigeria according to FAQ 2000 and blah, 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 blah. Things like that. And you might want to like use on a global level to how many million people or billion people are undernourished on a global scale, and also bring it down to Nigeria. You also want to talk about existing strategies or technologies that have been used to, address this issue. So, for example, I am stating that, okay, pest and disease is one of the problems that is affecting food security in Nigeria, but then how does biotechnology come into place with this use of transgenic crops and all of that? And in Nigeria, there has been a release of maybe a transgenic crop which is pest resistant for maybe like cowpea or any kind of crop that I'm aware of. And then I would also want to mention the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals as how it relates or it's relevant to my study and my proposed program. In this case, it's the SDG 2, which is like the zero hunger specifically, and you could also include no poverty, but you have to look for a way to relate it. Next off, I want to provide specific example of the national efforts to reduce this. Like I said, you can talk about some of the strategies that in Nigeria, for example, where a specific GMO crop has been released or a specific biotechnological tool has been employed to curb the effect of pest and disease affecting yield and agricultural production. Next, you want to relate your proposed study to the CSC team, and in my case, it is Science and Technology for Development. So you need to know the CSC team that you are applying, that you're going to select before you write this essay, and that's why the SDG and the CSC team were part of the questions that you were asked on the application form. So how does biotechnology, how does it align with the CSC development team? You want to include that. You also want to talk about the broader sectoral impacts of your study on sustainable development. Okay, if I'm able to, gain this biotechnical skill to produce transgenic crop, it's going to definitely increase yield and some other things, and in the long run is going to reduce the rate of malnutrition and undernourished individuals that we have in Nigeria. So what are the specific skills that you plan to gain as a result of your studies? You also want to include that, and then you conclude. Next off, the next question that you'll be asked under the development impact section is how you intend to apply your new skills and qualification when you return to your home country. Now, the first thing you want to talk about is you might want to say, oh, I want to work at a specific organization relating to your program or study, or do you want to further study? So, for example, this is a master's application you are doing. So, immediately you are done, how do you intend to apply these new skills when you return home? Would this be a foundation or a basis for you to pursue further studies like a PhD? And even if you're pursuing a PhD, how do you intend to apply the skills that you have gained from this master's into your PhD program? And what other contribution to the community would you be engaging in with these skills that you have acquired? So now you want to tell them that you're applying these skills to solve a problem or maybe create a solutions, and you have to be specific about the problem. In my case, I will be talking about solving a problem of pests and insects resistance in crops. And you also want to talk about things like participating in volunteer programs that are related to your study and where you can actively utilize your skills, where you can actively contribute to whatever goal and vision they have for these programs in order to move it forward, right? Another example is maybe you want to engage with research communities by attending seminars and communicating to the wealth of scientific knowledge that is out there. Also collaborating on solutions to promote the sustainable development goals. You might want to collaborate with other researchers that are in line with what you're doing. So that's like points you might also want to include. I'm looking forward to collaborating also with researchers that are in line, and the aim is to work together, and maybe from the networks that you've already built while you're in the UK, you want to collaborate with some of these people in order to, as relates to your program or your field of study, let's say biotechnology, to create crops that will be resistant to insect and pest attack. So now the third part of the development impact section is what you expect to change in development terms following your studies, including A, the outcomes that you aim to achieve, B, the time frame for their implementation, and C, who the beneficiaries will be. So one thing is Commonwealth has made the questions structured in a way that you should already know what is expected of you and what you want, what you are required to include in these essays. So now to break it down, I want to also give a brief introduction again of what are the challenges. It's not too much to briefly talk about what the challenges are, and as a result of climate change, erratic rainfall, pests and disease in Nigeria, affecting crop yields and food security, especially for vulnerable populations. That's in my case, right? And what is the outcome? Based on my proposed program and all of that, which is biotechnology, my aim is to, or the outcome I expect to achieve, or I aim to achieve, is to promote sustainable agriculture and increase the adoption of biotechnology even amongst farmers. And this would include production of genetically engineered crops, which have more pest and disease resistance and also higher yields, and which would definitely add to the economic growth of Nigeria. So those are the aims I want, my outcome. So outcome is to promote sustainable agriculture, also produce crops that are pest and disease resistant, and also increase the yields of crop, and also contribute to the increase in the economic development of Nigeria. So now, who are the beneficiaries of this particular development steps I want to carry out? First of the beneficiaries will be the smallholder farmers, because when you have farmers who have access to crops that are genetically modified or transgenic crops which are resistant to certain pests and diseases or insect attacks, that is ordinarily a problem for them, but having access to this kind of modified crops would definitely mean more production for the farmers, right? And increase in production and revenue. Also, the low-income Nigerians will benefit because they are able to have access to affordable, nutritious food. When you have pest and disease attack before, right, there is no way this won't reduce it won't reduce the harvestable crops and the ones that have economic value. And when you have less harvestable crops, there will be increase in the price of these things. So Nigerians will definitely be able to afford nutritious food. And then what is the time frame? You would want to include a realistic time frame, right? So within 4 years, you aim to reduce pesticide dependence by 2%. That is a way relating to your goal, which is the outcome to promote sustainable agriculture, right? So when you are doing sustainable agriculture, which is in my case, you are reducing pesticide dependence because you now have crops that are resistant to pests, diseases, and insects attack. And then you want to release more improved crop varieties, right? So now, what is the action plan? When you talk about the action plan, you can't just say, I want to achieve this, and this is the time frame, these are the beneficiaries. How do you intend to achieve this, right? So maybe organizing trainings for at least 50 farmers on the benefit of genetically modified crops. It could be a way. Just look for a way to reach out. Could it be that you want to engage on social media? Think of creative ways as it relates to your program and your proposed study. Now, the last question under the development impact is how the impact of your work would be measured best. So this will be in 100 words. So now you want to talk about key performance indicators. What are the key indicators that you can look out for? Maybe it's the contribution to your organization, or is it the number of farmers that will be adopting the GMOs, genetically modified crops, and the reduction in undernourished Nigerians, say for example. How do you want to measure these key indicators? Maybe is it through conducting surveys to gather feedback online, or is it through extension agents or whatever? Think of, you have to relate this. I'm just using biotechnology and agri as an example, but you have to think of creative ways as it relates to your own program. So now, Another aspect is to maybe track your research publications and the effectiveness of some of the biotechnological techniques that you have been able to learn about in increasing agricultural output. Also, do you want to use platforms like social media to share about project updates and some of the outcomes that you have been achieving? So you think about this critically and include that. So now the next section of the essay is the career plan. So here the selection panel would want to understand how your proposed study will assist you in your career. You want to describe the skills that you expect to gain from this scholarship and how your career plans, the skills you expect to gain from this scholarship, and what your career plans are once you return home after your program. So the first part of this section is, the first question is, what are your objectives during the award? And it is required that you write about 0 to 250 words, right? So the first thing you definitely want to achieve during this program is the knowledge and the skills, right? So you are going there for a master's or maybe a PhD program. Obviously, your first objective should be increasing your knowledge, because that's why you don't have an idea of what biotechnology is. You don't have an idea of the skills used to produce transgenic crops. So you want to know more and you want to also acquire the skills. So you don't just want to be generic about the knowledge and the skills. You need to be specific about what you are mentioning. So that's why you have to also do your research. Is in terms of, if it's in biomedical science, talk about some of the skills, the specific skills and things you aim to achieve, the technical skills. So now you also want to, one of your goals should be about learning how you can utilize these biotechnology skills to address a particular problem in your own country. So in my case, it's food security. Another thing that I believe might be helpful that you want to learn during your objective is improving your research abilities, especially in quantitative analysis. Obviously, your research skills in undergraduate is maybe good, but one of the things you definitely achieve as a master student or a PhD student is ability to investigate and to make research yourself. And one very important thing which the Commonwealth Scholarship prioritize and consider as very important is networking and collaboration, right? So all of your development impact programs that you think you want to organize, you need people that would help you. So you want to tell them that, oh yes, I'm willing to network and collaborate with people, and that should be one of your aim. Right. And another thing is you want to aim for academic excellence. So that's just like an addition. So think of other things that are your specific aims. Don't just be generic, be really specific. So now the next thing under the career plan is 5 years following your award. What do you intend to do? So in 5 years, there are definitely things that you do immediately. So are you going to work? If you are working, you have to mention, even if you end up not working in that particular organization, but what dream do you have? What goal? Say for me, I was interested in working at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. Well, I already had my internship there. So I feel like, if I go back to Nigeria, it would be a good place to start off. And there's a bioscience department there in IIT, and it will be a good place to utilize my skills that I have just acquired. And also in the space of 5 years, you want to be involved in your career development, maybe by going to conferences, engaging in different things relating to your field, being in webinars and all of that. And networking and collaboration is also another thing you want to do in the space of 5 years. Leverage the networks you have already built during the course to engage in research collaborations and volunteering. And also, you shouldn't forget the main thing, because when you are back to your home country, the aim is to develop your country. So you have to include some of those development impact plans, that those things you stated in your development impact essays. Like, how do you want to achieve them? What are the things you want to achieve? So you have to state that this is the time where you will be achieving, or at least you are starting to put in place all of those things that you have plans to achieve. Then lastly, your long-term goal in the space of 5 years. Even if you don't achieve everything in 5 years, what is your aim? Do you want to further your study, or do you have plans to do other things? So I want to include that. So next off is your long-term career plan, which is also 250 words. It could be less than 250 words, but 250 is the max. So what are your ambitions for the next 10 years? For me, maybe I'm planning to complete a PhD or become a faculty member, like a professor or whatsoever. Another thing you want to talk about is the practical applications of the skills and the knowledge that you have acquired. Say, for example, do you want to start a farm, maybe have an organic or something? Because and when you mention a PhD, you might also want to be specific about what PhD you're pursuing. Is it also going to be in biotechnology? Is it in sustainable agriculture? Is it in business? And if it's in business, you want to talk about why, or is it going to be another master's in business? Say, for example, you want to own a farm or a consulting firm, and you might want to pursue an MBA. So things like that are things you want to include. Practical applications. How do you want to engage your biotechnology skills or things that you have learned in terms of sustainable agriculture? And then how do you also, in your long-term career plans, you want to talk about your contribution to the field through continuous research and maybe mentoring future professionals. Say, for example, you're going to be a professor. The students you'll be teaching definitely is one way. And let's say, for example, you own a farm, people who are coming in as interns in your farm, that's a way of you also contributing to mentoring future professionals. So now to the proposed study in the UK. So the first question here is your study outline, and you're asked to provide a short outline of your proposed study and research. And this should be written for an audience that does not have any prior knowledge of the subject and must not be overly technical. So you don't want to be writing things that are very complex that when somebody reads and you're like, what exactly are they talking about here? Any abbreviations or specialist terms must be explained. So even if you are doing something like FAO, you don't just write FAO, you want to write its Food and Agriculture Organization, say for example, but I'm not saying that you have to include FAO in your essay. So now in your study outline, the first thing you want to talk about is what your degree and your institution is. So they need to know that, for example, you're talking about study outline, what do you intend to study exactly? Which is MSc in Biotechnology at the University of Chester, for example, and you want to talk about what this biotechnology in itself is. What exactly is the goal of biotechnology, and how does this field also address certain challenges? Say, for example, you want to study biosciences or biomedical science. What exactly is biomedical science? You have to talk about it. What is the aim of biomedical science, and what's the knowledge and the skills you'll be gaining from this program? What problem can you use it to solve? Is it in the healthcare? So biotechnology can be used to solve problems relating to food security in terms of creating crops or producing crops that are resistant to pest and disease attack or other environmental stress. So that's why I say you have to mention the specific areas where the field is applied. So you want to mention key methods or highlight major tools that are usually used in the area of your program of study, and describe how these techniques would help you solve specific issues, and how will this program also promote things like sustainability. You talk about advancements in the field and how advancements in this field can also contribute to new solutions. So new solutions, like still in the case of transgenic crop is a solution to the issue of pesticides and insecticide, because it promotes sustainability in its own way and it reduces the use of this kind of chemicals while still increasing crop production. So now the next question is the detailed plan of study. So here you are asked to provide a detailed plan of your proposed study. The selection panel will want to understand why you have selected your proposed course and university. Describe clearly why you have chosen your proposed course and university and why you want to undertake this study in the UK. So it's kind of long one, but then it helps you to answer the question. So also you want to still mention your program of study, which is biotechnology and University of Chester, to contribute to security in Nigeria. So what is the motivation? What is the problem statement? Right. So they want to know why you have chosen that course. So the reason why you have chosen the course is to solve a problem. Don't ever forget that you are trying to solve a problem. In my case, it's Nigeria's food insecurity crisis, right? So, and how is this course relevant to your goal? All right, so biotechnology would provide me skills to develop pest and disease resistant crops, helps me to boost agricultural production, and it also aligns with the SDGs 1 and SDG 2. So also your detailed plan of study, if you have a dissertation topic in mind, you might want to include. And I think for PhD students, you want to include your proposal where you have your background of study, your justification. So in that case, you definitely would have want to reach out to maybe a professor that you intend working with, depending on how the school you are willing to apply is how the formats that they have already on ground for PhD students. So what are your learning objectives? You want to include that, and why have you selected the university that you have selected, and why have you also selected the UK, right? So yeah. And now to the personal statement, which is second to the last part of all of the essays you'll be writing. Such, they are long essays, but then it's worth it when you get the scholarship. So here you have to summarize the ways in which your personal background has encouraged you to want to make an impact in your home country. You should indicate areas in which you have already contributed, such as having overcome any personal or community barriers to higher education. So first off, you want to talk about your interests, and you want to talk about how you have been able to recognize relevant issues or barriers in the community. So you want to use an introduction or first paragraph that is actually catchy. So how did you develop interest in biotechnology? Maybe you had a farm at home and you see your parents having to water their crops or wherever. I feel like, oh, what if we have plants that are resistant to drought? What if the problem of pest and disease attack that your parents experienced, things like that, right? Or maybe you were working in school or you were volunteering somewhere and you just found something fascinating. So you want to include something that is catchy and then relate it to, even if it's an interest, yes, it's good, but then you have to relate it to a current problem, relevant issues, things that are pressing, right? So now you also want to talk about, now you have some problems, you're interested in this, but then you also want to talk about the need to acquire the skills and the knowledge that would help you address these challenges. And also you want to talk about maybe how you've had certain challenges, blah, 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 maybe to your education, whether financial or, and how you have been able to overcome those challenges. You don't want to just talk about the challenges, but they want to know how you've been able to take steps that even though my parents were finding it difficult for they were finding it difficult to sponsor me to school, right? But even though they sponsored me, I was able to maintain a strong grade, which made me to secure a scholarship for my undergraduate studies. So things like that, you don't just talk about the problem and the challenge. You want to explain how you've been able to overcome such problems, right? And then you want to talk about your achievements and qualifications, right? So talk about your academic achievements, and you might want to be specific. Say, for example, you are a first class graduate, you want to include the first class graduate, and maybe you can say things like, I'm among the 1%, top 1% students in your school or in the whole of the university. If you graduated with so many awards, you want to talk about that, your scholarships, your engagements, and your involvement in leadership roles, extracurricular activities that are related to your field. And even if they are not related to your field, you can also include them, and how you've taken steps to actively develop yourself, right? So this is like personal statements, and it also should include your personal development. There was a part where I mentioned like, oh, I delayed my compulsory 1-year National Youth Service in order to go for an internship, 3 months internship to add to my knowledge in this field, blah, 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 and courses that you've taken, things that you've done to actively develop yourself in the area of your skills, in the area of leadership and all of that. So you want to include all of this in the personal statement. And then your future plans and commitments. And even if there are certain things that you have not done, but what do you intend to do in the future that is still going to contribute to your professional development or further your education in this field, and how you are committed to making a positive impact in the community or the industry upon graduation. Then lastly, you have the voluntary and the leadership experience. Here you want to summarize the ways in which you have engaged in voluntary activities and the opportunities you have had to demonstrate, and it's supposed to be 500 words. So now the first thing for the voluntary activities, you want to briefly introduce this section and you want to state the motivation behind engaging in voluntary activities. You might want to say things like, maybe you might want to quote somebody, or you just want to you just something that is catchy about why you think volunteering is a very good thing, why you think giving back to your community. Then you say like, oh, I've been tuned to volunteer or give back to my community in various ways. Then you want to start talking about those ways. So you list and talk about specific voluntary projects and the details of the projects you were involved in and how you were actively involved and how you participated. You want to talk about what the goals and the impacts of each project. Say, for example, you were involved in a project that involves sensitizing people about the Sustainable Development Goal. So it has a vision, it has a goal, because people are probably not aware of the SDGs and why it's important, why we have to promote sustainability, right? So that's like goal and impact of the project. Then what exactly did you do? You have to be specific. Did you post on your social media accounts, your WhatsApp? What are the coverage? Like, how many percentage of people did you influence? Things like that are what you want to include. And that's what I mean by being specific. So you list all of the projects you've been involved in that you volunteer. So now is when you see why it's important to, volunteer and be actively involved, right? And don't just generalize it. Even though you went out as a team or you have a team, what was your specific role? So you want to own it. You want to personalize it in this case. So you want to discuss how your voluntary and leadership work has also positively impacted your community or the target group. So even if you went out to volunteer, were people really sensitized? What was the outcome of your voluntary activities, and provide examples of the outcome or changes resulting from your involvement. So now the leadership position aspect of this essay, you want to describe your leadership positions. You don't just want to tell them, but you want to show what you have done. All right, so you have to specify the organizations or group. Oh, I was a college rep of the College of Agricultural Sciences while I was in my undergraduate. So what was my role? Blah, blah, blah. What did I do during the session? So you might want to use something called the STAR approach in this case, right? Where you have the situation, the task, the action you took, and then the results that you obtained. What was the situation you faced? One of the situation I faced during the college year was the situation of communication. There was no access to like a database where you can reach out to all of the students. So that was a situation, lack of effective communication system. What was the task I was faced with? I have to be able to have access to this email. So then I was able to, delegate the tasks to the various college the class representative for each level and departments in my college. So they were able to reach out to students to fill in their email addresses, and that way we were able to pull up all of the email addresses so that I could be able to, send emails and communicate information to students in a whole without you having to say, oh, you have to reach out to the class rep at all times. So even if you reach out to the class rep, good, but then the students also still have access to this information. So what was the result? More students are being reached out to and more students are being responsive and to whatever information you want to pass across. So that's like an example. So also you want to talk about in leadership, because you don't just lead, you want to talk about how it has impacted your personal development in terms of the skills and how you have been able to develop. What skills have you been able to gain through these experiences? You want to talk about communication. How have you been able to lead a team? How have you been able to promote teamwork? How have you been able to balance things, project management and all of those things? So you also want to mention maybe like some of the trainings, the webinars, the workshops that you've attended that are related to leadership or volunteering, and then you want to state how these experiences have shaped your career aspirations and your future goals. So these are like some of the things that I believe are very useful. So like I said, For the Commonwealth essays, you have the development impact, and don't forget that you also want to relate whatever Commonwealth or the UK is doing in your home country. You want to include it in all of these development impact. So you also have to research on the Commonwealth website to find out that, and you have the career plans, which is your objective, your career in 5 years, your long-term career, your proposed study in the UK, which includes your study outline, the detailed plan of study. Then you have the personal statements, and then you have the voluntary and the leadership essay. So then these are some of the videos that I've created before, which would also be useful in helping you craft your essay. So you have the Search the Commonwealth Scholarship website, where I walk you through how to, retrieve information on the Commonwealth website. And there is a video where I invited a previous Commonwealth PhD scholar to talk about how she won a fully funded Commonwealth PhD scholarship. And then all you need to know about the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, although the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship is not currently open, but here we have some of the Commonwealth scholars previously, which are currently Commonwealth alumni, and they discussed what the scholarship covers and how to apply, and writing the essays in detail. So you might find more information about the essays. All of the essays are, very much similar. I won the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, but when I look through the Commonwealth Masters page, the essays are actually the same thing. And also the application is still currently open. You also want to check this video where I talked about what the Commonwealth Masters and PhD Scholarship also entails. And then want to, explore the Commonwealth website and find more details, right? So now let's say you have been able to fill all of your essays, right? So after the development impact essay, like I said, the next is the career essay, where you have to fill. So here you want to write the name of your institution, say it's University of Glasgow, your proposed study is MSc Food Security, for example. If you have another university, you can include that. And I'm just going to walk you through how to complete the application, right? So now you want to include contacts with your proposed university. Say, for example, you've applied to the school, you have to write that you've applied to the school. If you have not, then you say you have not, but it's good if you started your application at least and you are waiting for the results. Here, the study outline part of the essay, which we've already discussed, you include it, the detailed plan of study. And then you also want to include keywords as it relates to your program. Say mine is biotechnology, food security, and transgenic crops. Then next, you include the section for your personal statement. Then you include for your leadership and voluntary experience. And then you fill your documents, just look through and you click on next. You also have to, it's probably not compulsory to fill this in, and some of them, but it's just good. So you click on next, and there is how did you get to find out about the Commonwealth Scholarship, or maybe it's through a current Commonwealth scholar, the CSE website. And what resources did you use? Definitely the CSE website, and maybe you watch YouTube videos, a current or online media advertisements, you've read the instructions, the selection criteria and the conditions. Do you have any spent or unspent criminal convictions? No. If yes, you provide the details for that. Are you or any relationship, blah, 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 politically exposed person? No. In my case, if yes, provide the details. Your citizenship, are you testifying that you're a Commonwealth citizen? What's your country? In this case, Nigeria. Funds, yes, I cannot afford. It's my work, the date you are signing this form, the 7th of October, if that's the date. Then you click on next. Have you submitted this application before? If yes, you click yes. If no, you click no. And when you click next, you are submitting. So in this case, I'm not going to be submitting because I'm not applying for this scholarship. So it's been a long video, but then do where to check all of the information that I'll be including in the description box. And don't forget to like, don't forget to share this scholarship. And if you know anybody that it's going to be used for, don't hold it to yourself. And then like, share, comments, ask your questions in the comment section. I'll be happy to respond to them. If you have questions, ask before the deadline. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Until we meet again, just stay comforted. Ciao.